Welcome, everybody, to True Confessions of a Car Guy. Welcome to our latest episode. My name's Bagi. Alongside me is the host, John Gavin. John, welcome to this latest episode.
Thanks, Bagi. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. In this episode, we are going to cover F&I and also talk a little bit about AI, which will take us into next week where we have a very special guest. And before we get into it, we want to thank our sponsors, Huck, and also Zenzio AI as well. All right.
All righty. Well, Stevie, I would say every day is a holiday. Well, for me, it really is. I mean, it was 65 degrees today, and I called my brother in Chicago, and I think it was 15. So it was pretty cold, huh? So
yeah, it's about 15 degrees out here in the Chicagoland area, but the Bears are in the playoffs, so we
can't wait. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to this game. I'm looking, I think we got a big advantage because we're playing the Rams. As Stafford's not that great in the cold, he's hurt. We got to win. But anyhow, let's get down to car business.
Yeah.
So, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to Joe Rogan. I listen to Adam Carolla. I listen to Rob Lowe. I listen to a lot of car guy ones. Car dealership guy, for instance. I listen to his podcast. I try to kind of stay in the know because maybe a lot of people don't know. I'm still in the car business. I work for a dealer group. I train the used car managers, the general managers, BDC, everybody on how to kind of do things to best practices of dealerships coming from Cox. That's what we were trained on. So I like to stay in the know on what's kind of going on out there. And that's kind of why I listen to all these podcasts about the car stuff, because, we here, you and I, we tell it like it is. We're not doing this because, we got a sponsor that's in the car business or actually works at a car dealer and is like a COO of the car dealer on a podcast. I don't know when he has time to do work because he's always on the podcast, but no problem. He's a very nice guy. But anyhow, I was listening to one, and then Dave Thomas came on. And I don't know if you're familiar with Dave Thomas. Dave Thomas, it works for CDK, who I respect, and I really like a lot of his content. I think I'm on his email mailing. I always take some notes on him. He's called the director of content marketing, and he said content marketing and insights, I think. So I'm not sure what that is, but he brought up F&I. The questions were, what's a good direction we're going in, and what's one of the things you see in the future? Well, first of all, we never know. It changes every freaking day. Something's different. I mean, we're going to talk about AI next week, but AI is hitting the car industry like a tidal wave. But anyhow, you start talking about F&I, and I love my F&I guys. I was an F&I guy, and gals, whatever. I love them because they're the hardest working people in the store. They got about 7 minutes to do what salespeople and managers did in 2 hours, 2.5, and then they even get motherfucked because they're not hurrying it up. They're not delivering fast enough, yet they got to make money. So he said that, I think his exact quote was that car shoppers are leaning into F&I products. Well, he said number one was warranty. Number two was prepaid maintenance. Okay. I like I said, I'm not bashing Dave. Dave's a great guy. He said he had 20 years with cars.com, somebody else. But he's never worked in the car business. And first of all, everything that happens in the car business usually is directed by a pay plan that has been given out. Our pay plans are based on profit. We got to make money. We don't get paid for doing nothing. We don't get a salary. Most of these guys don't get salaries. They're not salaried people. These are commission-based jobs. So when you have, Now, today we've got all kinds of companies that come in and train very heavily on finance. Back in the day when I was in finances, I'm going to date myself, there's a Pat Ryan group. Ryan Insurance came out, and I think I've told the story where I went out with the Ryan rep and my Ryan teacher and crashed the car with them. Got drunk and crashed the car, whatever it was. So, but today it's even more heavily because, first of all, it's very difficult for a car dealer to make any front end profit. It's very difficult because the customer has so much information. I mean, you see it in your department that the customer has the price. We already gave them the price, and they already compared it to 3-5 other dealers. The only reason you're going to win that battle is, one, you're close enough to them. You hit the PMA. You're in their area. Number two, they called and you handled that phone call really well. You did good phone, which, it drives me nuts when I talk to car dealers, because again, with Cox, I talk to the owners all the time. And it would drive me crazy when I'd bring up to them, hey, nothing against the operator, but she's your most important person in this whole dealership. Because when somebody calls, that's who they get. And first impressions are almost everything, especially nobody wants to wait 20 minutes to talk. Nobody wants to be jumped around. I told the story where I used to grab the phone calls to get ups when I worked for Lynch. I'd pass we'd make jokes, pass them back and forth. But in today's world, everything's got to be perfect because the competition is so fierce. And you better have somebody really skilled answering that call or very likable. And they have to project that on every phone call. So, but getting back to the finance part about, customers leaning into, that's not the case. They're not doing anything different than they did 10, 15, 20 years ago. They never leaned in. We had to sell everything. It's just become so litigious that now when you walk into a finance department, I'm very sorry.
It's all right.
So when you walk into a car dealer and you're in the finance department, it's very litigious. So they have to sign. Remember, I told you when I started, we had like 5 documents to sign. Now they've got about 25, maybe more if they buy some products. One of those products is a declination of products, pretty much stating that I don't want tire and wheel insurance. I don't want gap insurance. I don't want credit life disability. I'm dating myself again. I don't want extended warranty. Why? Because dealers are on the hook. They can't win either way. They sell it to the customer, and then they're in trouble. They end up like Jimmy Duvas because he sold them stuff. You can't do that. You don't sell it to them, and something happens. Now there's a lawsuit because you didn't offer it to them. So there's a no-win situation. But to say people are leaning in, no. Pay plans are structured. Finance guys' only job is to sell products, and it's become such an important department of the car industry that if you don't have a good finance person, they'll be looking for another one till they get one, because that is 50 or more % of the gross of every deal that goes in there. They have to make money in that department. Now, they do it the legit way. They sell each customer, hey, the extended warranty, they better know them. When I sold in F&I still don't know anything about cars, and I still couldn't tell you the makes and models. I barely get through I got a new truck now. I got a Ram 1500. And I love the truck. I couldn't believe how great the technology was. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But anyhow, even my paperwork, I looked at it and I'm looking at it going, oh my God, how many more things? And I did this out of state. So it's even worse because there's a couple out of state forms you got to do. I got to throw a shout out to Napleton, CDJR. They sold me a new truck. Great people, great job. But anyhow, all the docs that these guys have to sign, and the customer has to read through, they are not leaning in. It's just these guys are pushing harder and harder than ever to make gross back there. So it used to be you bought the car and you walked into the finance department, right? And you got billed out, and it took you 2.5 hours or an hour and a half to 2 hours to buy it, and another hour to wait to finance to get into the office, and then another half hour to get billed out. Well, now that hour and a half that you're buying the car, the salespeople are telling the customers about, hey, you ought to look at the warranty. You ought to look at tire and wheel insurance. You ought to look at key protection. You ought to look at whatever they're selling. That's their job. Now that gets to the desk where the sales manager, used car managers are. They're going out to close the deal, tell the customer, and they're telling, hey, you ought to look at the warranty. They're even telling them payments, because you got to break them all down now. We used to just quote a payment. They used to call it a leg. We give a leg. It's illegal today. But what we do is we tell a customer your payment is between $400 and $450, because back then we really didn't know the exact rate we were going to get. We didn't know what they were going to buy, so we would set up the worst case scenario so that at least when they got in there, they didn't go up, because then they'd be pissed off and be back out at the desk going, hey, that's not what you said. So we'd leave a leg, which was room for the finance guy to make some money or sell some products. Well, now they go and say the payment is $400 at 3.9. With a warranty, it's $430. With gap insurance and a warranty, it's $445. With just gap, and they break all this stuff down for them. So they're not leaning in. They're just being explained more. And are they buying more? Yeah, they are, because the pay plans are directed to sell more. You have to keep a job. You have to. You got to do a good job. And it wasn't that the finance department wasn't the profit center that it is today. Today, it's a very important profit center. Dealers have it so hard today. I mean, this is, and everybody don't cry for the car dealer. Listen, it is a very difficult ecosystem we're in for car dealerships right now. And I think in the next 5 years, it won't even look the same. I think it's going to look completely different 5 years from now. Now, I had the luxury of working for Cox, and AI has been around with Cox for, probably 2017 it started to develop. And I don't know the exact years that it started, because they don't come out and tell the performance managers, which I was. But we did get profit time around 2017, 18, something like that. My memory sucks, so I won't know the exact time. But profit time was a way to price your cars. Great tool. If I opened up a car dealer today, I would have profit time, and I wouldn't have a used car manager. I would have a profit time, because it uses all AI. It gets information updated every minute. It knows where to price. It turns the cars into precious metals, platinum, gold, silver, bronze. The problem today is almost every car is bronze, and bronze means that it's a car you can't make money on, because the wholesale market is not caught up to the retail market. So guys are still paying outrageous numbers for cars, but they can't recoup that selling it. The customer's still not paying it. They haven't matched where they used to be. You paid a wholesale price and you sold a retail. Now you're paying a retail price. You're selling at a retail price. So that's why it's so important that the finance department makes you some money. So, I've been at stores where they've had an aftermarket department, which sold, the luggage rack, especially Jeep, front winches, running board, whatever, all kinds of stuff. So, to say that they're just leaning in, and it's just not true. They're not calling up and saying, what's the extended warranty cost on that car before they come in. They don't even care about it. Most of the time they don't care about it till they get in the building, and then the car dealer, to actually stay afloat and pay everybody, is selling the products. They're really doing a much better job. They're pushing every product, and they're very knowledgeable about it. We used to have a product called Mist, and people actually bought it, but it was an antibacterial. But if somebody said to me today, I'm gonna sell you Mist for $15.95, and I don't know about it, I think I'd be laughed out of the room. 20 years ago, when we sold Mist, you didn't get laughed out. You just, okay, you told them this is so your kids don't get sick and you don't get sick and everything. Cabin air filters became something that every car dealer, when the customer walks in, first thing, you need a new cabin air filter. But I don't smoke. Oh, you need one. We've got COVID. Better get a new cabin air filter. So it's just a different world, and I do get a little, I guess, I'm very defensive for car people. And when somebody who's not in the car business states something like that, now, I think he got that from a report, because I shut it off. I think he got it from a report that was a survey of dealers. Well, again, I don't know how much things have changed, but usually the surveys, we say anything to get it over with, just to get moving on. We're not really sitting down and digging into that survey. We just want to move on, and we want them to hear what we tell them what they want to hear already, because we're looking to, we might work them for a price, or we might work them for a product or something. So we're going to be on their good side regardless when it comes to every vendor we deal with. We hold the cards pretty much with vendors as dealers because we're the customer. We're supposed to, at least. But in today's world, it's hard to find good vendors. There's so many who do the same type of thing. I mean, you run into it. Your BDC. Now, the guy that we're going to have on next week is Lane Campbell. Lane Campbell is the president and founder of Zenzio AI. And when I met Lane, I was just retiring from Cox, and his product was the shit, boy. This was really a great product. You would call up. It was pretty much answered every question. Like right now, you're the AI. When somebody calls for a used car, you're the guy for that dealership that you're at. You do it all. And to find a guy like you, Steve, is almost, it's like 2 out of 10 can do what you do. That's about it. There's one other guy in the same area who's in your hemisphere. There really isn't. To find that kind of talent is very difficult, or that kind of drive, or that kind of dedication in what you do is very difficult. Well, with AI, it's doing the first step for you while you do as well as you do for that customer. So we got customer 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? You get customer 1, and he replies back to you, and now he says for you to call him, or he digs into a long conversation of information for a car. Well, 2, 3, and 4 have to hold off. With AI, 2, 3, and 4 are taken care of pretty satisfactorily to their expectations, because this AI is answering some very valid questions, and it knows everything. It knows everything about the car. It knows everything about when we're open. It knows it can almost answer every question. What it doesn't have is a personality like you. A lot of people come and ask just for you. Right? They come in and ask for you, Steve. I want to talk to Bagi. So I kind of equate it to, I've said this a million times. I think I never really text my wife, except I'm on my way, or yes or no. I don't text any conversations, because without inflection and talking to her, it could sound, and I do, and it's not just to my wife. I don't do it really anybody, especially customers, because it sounds different being typed in their head than it does me saying it. So AI is like the best thing to happen for the car business, but yet it's only an add to what we have. It just makes all the bad stuff we do right now not as bad. It's not going to take over. It shouldn't. It shouldn't take over because it doesn't have the inflection and it's not able to. Do you guys have any AI products that you're using right now?
No, we don't use any AI where I'm at, and like you were saying, I believe it could be a good tool, and as you know, I've all these years in the business. When it comes to sales in general, sales is not always transactional. To some people, it's a transaction. To some people, it is, but the majority of the time, it's not transactional. And it happened to me this week even. The guy's like the customer on the phone. I'm so glad I get to talk to a person.
Yeah.
He was, and built a good rapport, and he ended up
business. There's just no two ways about it. I get 30 to 40 referrals when I was in the car business. It's because of relationships I built. I know that, and I think that's where we're still in that mode, and AI just helps us answer those questions when we're doing what we do, which is building a relationship and having a serious answer question moment with the customer. That won't happen. So,
but I think it could have. Like I said, I think it's a good tool. And like, let's say, for example, there are people that they put in requests. You don't hear from them. They're just there.
Mm-hmm.
They're there forever and ever and ever. You send them an email or you try to contact them. They never pick up the phone or they never reply back.
Fake names, fake emails, fake phone numbers.
Yeah, so something like a long-term effect, long-term having the AI work with them long-term or with existing customers. Maybe there's, like I said, I think it could be a good tool, but like you were saying before, it's relationship. How many people, and I've seen it where I'm at, they buy cars from the same person, from the salesman, and that salesman he could be at 4 or 5 different dealers in his career, but they're going to follow the salesman. Why? Yes. It's not the product more so, but it's that trust that you can't. I think you can't just build it artificially. I'm
the prime example of that.
Exactly.
I worked at 50, and I still get the same people calling me. I just had a customer. I think I might have said it on the last show just a couple months ago, or a month ago, call me, who I haven't talked to in probably a year and a half, 2 years. Call me for a car, and she went and got her car from a friend of mine. So yeah, it is true. It's really a relationship business. But AI hit. Well, there's the other thing that Dave said in that podcast. He said, now, again, my brain sucks. I should have wrote it down. Did I write it down? Probably not, because I just try to remember everything. But he said that I think 45% of the dealers are already using AI already, and that I want to say next year it'll be around 65% that are committing to AI. Now, I'm going to listen to the whole podcast to kind of get those numbers, because I'm curious if he meant, full-blown AI or just some kind of AI. Because here, I was talking to my broker today, a lady friend of mine, she's my wife's best friend. So when I call her broker, she just gives me a lot of good advice. And she told me she's been using AI since 2006. So the way she said it to me, it sounded kind of weird, but they've been using some kind of tool, I guess like an algorithm to be considered I'm dumb as shit. So what do I know? It's the algorithm is what she meant by the type of AI tool. I don't know, but I can't wait to talk to Lane about it, because Lane, he knows his shit, and he's very, very knowledgeable. He has dealerships that use the tool on a daily basis, and I'm curious to see how it's integrating as well. Like I said, I've lost touch with them in the last couple of years because I retired and I went to work for dealers, but he already was in about 14, 15 dealers that when I would call, it was an amazing conversation, because I wanted to see how it worked. So I would go and do what you said. I would put my name. They wouldn't hear from me again, but I'd try to buy a car to see how it worked. And it was pretty amazing to me. And that was 2 years ago because I retired in 2023. So I can imagine how much it's advanced already. It's got to be pretty cool. But I feel like NADA is next week, I think, or 2 weeks, something like that. I'm guessing almost every one of the tools are going to be talking about AI. I know Cox and V Auto is already talking about some amazing stuff.
Vince Solutions said that they have something AI. I know their guy came around. They want to talk to us about the AI. And I just wanted to. I heard a really good quote, and I want your thought on this. This gentleman's name is Glenn. He has a podcast. He's got that company called 800%. I mean, I love his content. And he says about when he's talking about AI, how to utilize it, not letting technology take the place of execution.
I totally agree with that. Don't
get this technology and then sit back and let it do all the. No, you got to pick up the phone. You got to get in the email. Using it as a helpful tool. That's the way I look at AI, not just to take the place and do all the work. No, you still got to do the work.
No, what it does for me is kind of like Michael Jordan rules. It basically takes a good guy, makes him great. A great guy makes him tremendous, and a tremendous guy an all-star. It moves everybody up because you got that assistant right now to help you when you can't take care of it because you're doing what you do, and that's making that deal. It's hard to. I've done it, but it's really hard to work 2 and 3 deals at a time. Especially, you try to do a hat trick. You sold 3 cars on a Saturday because you got a spiff. You got another $150 or whatever it was. So I always tried to get a hat trick when I sold cars. But it was very difficult, and I probably did a disservice to the customer because I'm working 3 of them. One's sitting at Joe's desk, one's sitting at Johnny's desk, one's at my desk, and I'm bringing coffee to them all. So it probably took way longer than it should have. But again, it goes back to what I originally talked about, the F&I department. That's how you get paid. If I let somebody else take it, I lose half my deal. So, you try to make appointments with people and say, here, come at 12:12. It doesn't work like that. They just show when they want to show. Some do. I mean, they make an appointment. They show up on time. But you can't predict what time you're going to get an up. You don't know. They're going to come whenever they want to come. And if you get them, and then one of your other customer comes or somebody else comes, because I can't tell you how many times I'd be working a deal and somebody walk in from service and say, hey, you got anything new? And now I start to talk to them while I'm in the middle of desking a deal. And before I even bring that first pass to the customer, I'm talking to the other customer about what we got that might work for him. And he's sitting down, she's sitting down. I'm working 2 deals before you know it. I mean, Joe Perillo, he used to work. He told me he worked 4 or 5 deals at a time when he worked for Cadillac. It wasn't uncommon. He was number 1 salesman, I think, in the country at one time. He was a stud. So it's just AI would really help people like that. It could expedite what we do, like getting the credit app to where it's right. Because there's nothing worse than the customer doing a credit app and then we submit it and it's missing stuff because we're busy and we didn't check it. Now, I'm making a lot of excuses for people and their jobs, but it's getting harder and harder to do this job because there's so much more. It's so litigious. So one mistake ends up in a lawsuit. You can't do one mistake, you got a big problem. So we have to really take our time when we're doing a deal, but at the same time, everybody wants you to hurry up because we got another customer to come in, right? So finance department is like the hardest job in the car dealer. I mean, it really is, and they don't get enough credit for how much they do, but the customer leaning in is because our finance guys have gotten so much better and finance girls have gotten so much better and they're trained better. I mean, when I was a finance guy, I went to one school one time and then the rep would come around once a month and we'd bullshit or he'd say, hey, can you sell 10 more warranties for me? I need them this month. That's about it. Today they come in, they role play with you, they work, they work with you. You know, they really want you better. And if you don't do it, you're looking for a job.
And, I just wanted to circle back to your point on the role. There's also a sense of responsibility of protecting their products. And I wanted to ask you if you can just tell the people, like you said, we have people watching us that aren't car people, that just looking for some. Like, for example, imagine not telling a customer about gap insurance and then something happens there.
Yeah. I've had I had a lawsuit once, way back when, about a husband and wife came in and they bought a car and financed the car in the husband's name only. Wife didn't work. And back then, it wasn't like it is today where, you know, you were so litigious. So the husband just put it in his name, bought the car, and he died about a week and a half later. And we didn't have a declination of products back then. The contract did not have a credit life box like it does today that says I decline credit life. And I believe this case is kind of what caused it on the gray Ileanas and the blue Rule of 78 contracts, that customer sued the dealer and won because we didn't offer them credit life insurance. And the wife, he died, she's responsible for this $350 payment, let's say. She didn't work. So now what? So somebody smart enough said, hey, you ought to sue the dealer. You could have bought credit life insurance, card be paid off. The dealer lost. She got a free car. So from then on, to my knowledge, we'd always have declinations, or it was on the contract. You signed, I do not want credit life or disability insurance. You had to initial it. You didn't sign. You initialed. But if you don't offer, like gap insurance, there's a lot of customers who are negative equity. I mean, I think I read somewhere it's like 70, 80%. And I might be wrong. Don't hold me those
Especially if you bought the car right during COVID.
Yeah, it was supply and demand. And, you know, I love, you know, hearing poor Jimmy hearing this, that, you know, he overcharged and he had a market adjustment. We've been using market adjustments for 20 years. I mean, when I sold a Buick Grand National in 1985, there was a market adjustment of about $4,000 on the car. You had to pay over sticker. Why? You couldn't get them. I worked at a Buick dealer in Chicago, Lynch Buick, Irving and Long, and I had to go to Occanum, Ohio to get a Grand National that I sold. So you couldn't get the car, and there was a market adjustment. So to say during COVID, Mercedes and even Escalades, those cars were 20, 40,000 over sticker. You couldn't get them. You couldn't get them. So if nobody's putting a gun to their head and saying, you got to buy it, nobody. They're just saying, hey, I can't get any because I used to sell 10 of them and I used to make 2,000 each. I made 20,000. Now I only get one. I got to make that 20,000 because nothing's changed for me. I still got 40 people working there. I still got rent to pay. I still got the electric, still got the gas. None of that went cheap. None of that went away. I still got those bills. So to tell, you know, the dealers, oh, no market adjustments, fuck off. You don't know what you're talking about.
You know, and it's a double standard. I mean, it's okay for real estate, it's okay for other commodities.
Yeah.
But when it comes to automobiles and cars, it's just, and like you said, supply and demand. And then also, you know, the factories aren't helping either. Some of these factories have realized they can make just as much, which is just as little. Yeah. And so the burdens, like you said, there's a lot of burdens on dealerships nowadays. Yeah. Yes. And I can get into a whole thing about that because some people have not adjusted to the
next podcast. We're going to talk about that after we talk with Lane. But,
definitely.
You're right. I mean, we have a double standard. The factory, you know, I don't know if I mentioned it last podcast about Scout getting a dealer license. But Scout got a dealer license in Colorado. Now, I'm dumb as fuck. So before everybody goes, oh, he's like a lawyer. I don't know, Dick. I'm dumb as fuck.
But Who's Scout? I never heard.
Scout is supposed, from what I understand, again, I'm dumb as fuck. So Scout is a subsidiary of Volkswagen, and it's a new car make, and they just applied for a dealer's license in Colorado, got it, and that means they can sell Scouts directly to a customer right now. No dealer in between them. They're the manufacturer, like Tesla. Now, I never knew how Tesla got away with it, besides the fact they were the only all-electric, right? Real all-electric manufacturer. Everybody else had gas cars. So I still never, but I'll be honest, I never looked into it. I don't care. I'm just selling what I work. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Wasn't my concern. But to see this happen today, I think it happened about 3 weeks ago. Scout got this approval maybe a month ago. How does that change the landscape? Again, the manufacturers hold the cards. They have all the inventory. So Kia and Hyundai, I think, had record numbers for last December. And, those were like the only two manufacturers that I knew of that really had an abundance of inventory. So they could do those record numbers. Toyota can't do record volume numbers because they don't have them. You can't get any. Chevrolet, you can't get the cars. They're not there. So GMC, I think, is in the same situation. They don't have the inventory. So yeah, the manufacturer holds the cards, and the dealer, they put so much pressure on the dealer. I mean, I can remember being with BMW and them saying, we want you to put a new $20 million facade on the place. Why? I worked at City Oldsmobile on Irving Park in Chicago. Joe was probably one of the best car guys I knew or met. Went to Vegas, sold thousands of cars a month. And if you walked into his showroom, I don't think, no offense, Joe, I don't think they fixed anything in the joint except the toilets to make sure they worked. But it was just, he just sold a good car, an Oldsmobile, at a good price. And he was one of the top 5 dealers, maybe 10 or worst case. But he was always big number store, big job in the city with really no land. We don't have 4 to 8 acres like suburban car dealers, but we didn't have to have this beautiful front facade. It wasn't a necessity. Now they want every building to look the same. Well, they cost, $10, $20 million. Look at Volkswagen dealers, look at Hyundai dealers, look at Genesis dealers, Subaru dealers. Look at the one on Oakton or something. Big, beautiful new buildings. Well, these aren't free. I mean, they're not free. So
yeah, I don't think though that the manufacturers won't be able to exist without the dealers, because the dealers are the professionals. Guys like yourself, guys like me, you can't get that from a manufacturer. That takes years and years of experience working on the ground level to get that. And they've tried that. I know some brands have tried having it directly to consumers. Yeah. And the stores miserably failed, because you need smart car people. You need smart car guys and girls to run it and to do it a certain way. And so I think they're going to always need that. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think it should have ever been approved, period.
Right. No. I don't think so either. But everyone's trying to find a way. Now you can buy a car on Amazon. Now you can buy a car on this. But then, we'll see how that all plays out.
So we're at our 40-minute mark, brother. Yeah. The dog is scratching at the door. Dogs. So I'm going to let my boys out. And thank you for getting on. We'll do it again next Saturday. And don't forget, next week, we're going to have Lane Campbell on from Zenzio. And thank you, Zenzio, for sponsoring us today, along with Huck. And we'll see you all next week.
See you guys. Bye.